All right, I'm going to do a quick video today on the interior panels that I'm doing. And essentially, in short, they're polystyrene foam boards. And what I do is I cover them with fabric, and the specific fabric is called duck. It's considered like a light canvas. As you can see up here, I've already put, these are 2-inch thick polystyrene boards, foam boards, and I've glued them to the plywood roof on the bottom end. And then what I have is another 2-inch polystyrene board, which I'm going to cover in the fabric, and then I will fit and glue that up into this cavity here to continue the headliner portion. So let me show you how this is done. First, we need to talk about adhesives. And there's 2 for this project that are important. And there may be alternatives, but I found I did quite a bit of experimentation, and I found both of these work well. So the Super 77 is going to be what we use to glue the fabric to the foam board itself. And the Super 78, both from 3M, is what we're going to use to glue the bottom portion of this foam board, the bottom portion of this foam board to the white portion that you saw that's already glued to the top of the ceiling. So this is specifically formulated for polystyrene foam insulation. It comes out a little thicker and it does a great job. It's very expensive and a little hard to get. I've had to order it online. And you might say, well, could you use it for the fabric? And I found that it didn't work as well, coupled by the fact, like I said, it's very expensive and hard to get. The Super 77 works pretty good for that, though. So let's talk about how we do it. So this is the duck fabric. They measure it by ounce, and in this case, the thicker, the heavier, or the larger the ounce count, the thicker the fabric is. I think this is about a 8 or 9 ounce. It's not super thick, but it's a real rugged material, and it worked out well. I used it in my last camper project. So essentially, in short, you'll cut the panel to shape. So this particular one is 78.5 inches long by 26 3/4, which would fit within the stringers of the cross beams of the roof. As you can see, depending on the exact profile, you might need to cut that out. Little tip here, what I found works well to cut this is actually a jigsaw, surprisingly enough. It's of course very easy to cut, but it's kind of a challenge to cut it straight, but I found that the jigsaw works very well. These little cutouts here are going to be for the recessed lights right here. And I'll show you a little bit later how those fit in, but essentially, so this is the surface that's going to be, facing downward. The fabric is going to be glued on top of this. I used a hole saw right here. It's about the same diameter as that recessed lighting. And then I just kind of picked it out, poked a hole through the bottom. Once I get the fabric on, I'll cut the fabric, slip these in, run the cord to the bottom. And then when I go to install it, I'll feed the cord through a hole into a central location to where I can later tie it back into the power system. So, but in a nutshell, that's how it is. So I'm going to try to set up my camera here, spray down the glue, and show you how I pull the fabric over and straighten it out. Okay, so I've already glued the opposite side of the panel, which is where the camera's sitting. Just take a brush and brush off some of the little foam fuzzies that are going to exist. You're never going to get them all. Just kind of get it as clean as you can. So I've already glued this back portion of the fabric, so it's going to sit like this. And then, hold on a second. If you're in a confined area, I recommend wearing some breathing protection. So I'm not going to talk for a minute, just watching spray. Okay, you want to put a pretty good layer of that glue on there, and you want to let it sit and tack up briefly. I can't give you a set time. It's going to be temperature dependent. So I typically just kind of touch it, and if it feels a little wet, I don't go there yet, and I give it just a little bit. Right now it's kind of it's on the cooler side in my garage. If you were doing this in the hot summer though, you don't have a lot of room to play with. Again, you guys are going to see all these little fuzzies. I know it doesn't look clean, but there's just not a good way to get all these off. So just kind of give it the best you can. And let me reposition this here. Hold on. And there's just no way of getting around. Hey guys, I'm sorry. When I repositioned the camera, I must have shut it off there. So I actually pulled the fabric over, rubbed it down, thinking that the camera was running, and it turned out not to be. So that sucks. I apologize. But you guys saw I laid the glue. When it tacked up, you basically, what I found is just grab the fabric, pull it all the way across. Don't try to fit it in there as you go. It just doesn't work out as cleanly. You have a little bit of time to reposition with this particular kind of glue. And then essentially, once you pull it across, I grab these edges like this, and you just pull down tight as you go down, and then you just work out from the center, and you just rub your hand, and you rub out any little air bubbles or inconsistencies in the fabric. You guys see the light in here, and again, I apologize. I did this thinking I was recording. But essentially, this is how this works. So I just took a razor knife, cut an X in the fabric over where this puck hole is. Keep in mind, I used that hole saw. I didn't cut all the way through. I just cut about halfway through, and I poked a hole in the bottom, and I run the wire through the bottom. Now, these lights have this little metal thing. These are just generic, no-name Chinese lights here. But you can see they have these metal things, and this would be meant if you popped it through a piece of paneling, these would snap over it. It's not going to apply here. So what I did, let's see if you can see. I think you can see. So I bent those tabs upwards, okay? And kind of bent them upwards and out. Okay, and then what you're going to do, and this is just going to take some working here, and if you guys can come up with a better solution, I'm all ears. But you basically just kind of fit them through. You're going to take and kind of push one section of that little piece of metal into the styrofoam as far as you can and as deep as you can on one side, and then try to push the other one as deep as you can on the other side. So you're kind of embedding the light into the styrofoam. And then I'll push down and rotate, and it'll kind of dig into the styrofoam, and if you got it right, it'll kind of suck it down into it a little bit. And then, you know, there you go. The light's in there. So what we'll do next is I'm going to trim up these side edges. One thing about these edges, you can see they're a little long here. I definitely want some vertical distancing, but I don't want them to hang over, because when you go to turn, because we'll flip this over to install it between the beams, you don't want fabric to tuck up underneath there and create a little bit of a gap. Though this adhesive is, like I said, a little thicker, it's not a whole lot thicker than what you saw sprayed down. It's not something like, it's not very good at filling gaps. So you want it as tight as you can up there. So essentially what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fit the other light. I'm going to rotate it over. I'll spray this adhesive down on the back side of this, and then I'll spray it on the ceiling portion. just like we did with the other one. We'll let it tack up a little bit, and then I'll go in there and fit this in there and press it as tight as you can. And this stuff pretty much, when you press it in place, it's there. If you have to pull it off and reposition it, you're going to need to spray some more. So I'll just come back when I get this panel up. All right, so I finished all of the interior ceiling panels, and that's kind of a wide angle shot there so you guys can see it. So it's quite bright. So these are the lights and the lighting that will be inside of the camper. It's a total of 7 of those puck lights that I previously showed. And as you can see, it gives a great amount of light in here, and it's real balanced. When I do the final wiring, these will exist in 2 circuits. The 2 front ones, which are over the cab area, will be on 1 circuit, or essentially function by 1 switch. The other 5 that you see in the back here will be off of a 2nd switch with a dimmer. So that will allow, so right now it's actually quite bright. I hope this show up in the video here, but probably too bright in some circumstances. But I think, you could shut off the front if you wanted, have the back on, and use a dimmer. But anyways, you guys can see the hole in the middle up there. That's going to be for the vent fan. And this is going to be, I think, some pretty good insulation. It'd be 4 inches of polystyrene foam for the roof, which is going to come out to probably roughly about an R value of 16. May not be a lot from a residential application, but for a camper, that's pretty significant. Coupled with the fact it's completely insulated all around, including the floor, or it will be. But anyways, the panel covered in fabric, I really like it. It's not a conventional thing done in most campers, but I did it in my last one, and it held up really, really well. I used similar lights and a similar attachment method, and those held up surprisingly well. And that's it. So I hope that's helpful, and we'll go from there. Like I said, I'm probably going to keep the videos on a little lower end for the interior because I do want some of it to be a surprise, but you guys can see some of it's already coming together. Thanks for watching.